for Douglas A. Zembiec. It's easy for me to give like the very traditional like big fish story of how amazing Doug Zembiec was and how remarkable a personality he was.
Last 24, 48 hours have calmed down quite a bit.
How would I describe Doug? The first way to start is semi-chronologically is Doug's a Marine Corps officer. He was a Naval Academy wrestler, an All-American. He served in combat in Fallujah. He was eventually killed in 2007. You can tell that story very easily. Like, that's what you see on Wikipedia. I mean, all you have to do is, do the Google game, and you'll get plenty of the articles.
Some men from his Echo company were on a rooftop drawing rocket-propelled grenades from all directions. They tried to radio a tank crew for support, but couldn't get through. Zembiec raced out onto the street through withering fire, climbed onto the tank, and directed the gunner where to shoot. After the battle, he said that his Marines had fought like lions, and he was soon himself dubbed the Lion of Fallujah. The Lion of Fallujah was laid to rest at Arlington, and he was memorialized at his alma mater in Annapolis. A crowd of more than 1,000 included many enlisted Marines from his beloved Echo company. An officer there told a reporter, "Your men have to follow your orders. They don't have to go to your funeral."
The challenge of writing the biography is to humanize the legend, because every year it grows bigger and bigger. It is Monday. No one is shooting at you, and the fact that you're doing fantastic makes me happy. And at the end of the day, the pawns and the kings all go into the same box when the game's over, and so nobody's really bigger than another person. But as we know, that happens. People turn into giants in history. I mean, really, they were just people. That's a really important part of the book, because that's actually what made Doug remarkable in the first place. He was very human and normal in so many ways. He was so authentic, to use a word that's tremendously overused in 2018. He was so authentic and real to his Marines that they loved him for it, and we loved him for it. A year or so into the research and some initial writing, it's challenging to describe like the full picture of the person. And in 8th grade, Doug showed up at home, and if you know wrestling, like you can win by points or you can win by pin, and pinning somebody is putting them on their back. Doug came home and said, "Mom, I need you to sew an American flag to the back of my wrestling singlet, my wrestling uniform." And the reason is obvious, that Doug didn't think the American flag should be like placed down on the ground. And so that would incite him to win more matches. He didn't want to be on his back, but more importantly, he didn't want the American flag on the mat on his back. And then he started winning matches. Another thing that made Doug remarkable was I have a pile, of his personal diaries and writings. And what people see in the Washington Post article and posted behind us here, Doug's principles, they were called, principles my father taught me. It's true, that's what they are, and they're in his notebooks. But it's remarkable to read his notebooks, because you go from like assignments for the day, like we're going to the range or whatever, and there'll be a flurry of just things that he thinks are important, like be a man of principle, as you see on the thing, fight for what you believe in, teach, mentor, give back something to society, be a leader, not a follower, these types of things. The 20 principles, or the principles that you see, are just a very small sliver of what litters his notebooks, these reflections, these almost Marcus Aurelius meditations-like reflections that are quotable Doug Zembiec. That uniform is one of his that was actually a spare. He wasn't wearing that in Fallujah. That was a spare uniform that a corpsman who was with him in Fallujah had treated so many Marines. The guy's uniform was like soaked in blood. So Doug gave this Army medic, his uniform as a replacement. And then I got that back almost coincidentally and accidentally when I was still active duty, because this particular medic was working in an adjacent unit to mine. We were sitting in a cafeteria. I was chatting with another guy who knew Doug, and this third person overheard me and said, I have that guy's uniform in my locker from Fallujah. I mean, Doug loved the Marine Corps, as many Marines do. He really loved the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps is a place that Doug could become like fully alive, because it represented service to him. It represented an opportunity for leadership. Combat represented like the full manifestation of his personality: aggressive, excited, a great teammate. Even though Doug talked about leading well constantly, I'm convinced that really what he was doing was being a great teammate, and that the manifestation of his personality and being a great teammate was people looked to him for example. And the best way to highlight that, our training runs as a wrestling team. You always have the pack who kind of like makes this little mini agreement that we're gonna run hard, but stay together, so it's not obvious that people are getting left behind or whatever. Doug actually didn't tolerate that mindset. He hit the gas, full gas, every training run that we did. And guys would get really frustrated with him because he would come blowing by people, and guys would yell up to him like, there's no I in team. And Doug would turn around and yell, but there is an I in win. Someone who didn't like his style could easily say, well, he's just out for Doug. But at the same time, his demeanor, his emotional connection to the team was always like, this is for us. I am not pushing the pace just so I get mine. I'm pushing the pace so it's an example of what I think the level of performance needs to be. And this is what his Marines talk to me about too. I'm going to encourage and help everyone to get up to the highest level that they can. What I'm not going to do is compromise the full effort that I think is required to be successful in wrestling, to be successful in combat, to be successful in the Marine Corps. I'm not going to berate you. I'm not going to diminish you. I'm not going to do anything that... He was so incredibly compassionate in that sense that the slowest person, or the least capable Marine, whatever that means, I don't know, I wasn't in the Marine Corps, still got full respect, full compassion, full attention, full training. But that didn't mean he was going to lower the standard. That pushing, the constant pushing, the constant pushing. Agree or disagree, like to Doug, that was the ultimate manifestation of service. Was if we're prepared, if we're leading from the front, if we train like we fight. This is mentoring, this is teaching. This is, being a person of principle. It just so happened to the people who were around him, really close to him, we really valued that version of service. The way I would end this if I was ending this particular conversation for Veterans Day is, what ends up happening, for a lot of veterans is they're really common people put in really uncommon circumstances, and that gets packaged up as hero worship. That's not really what being a veteran is about. It's not what service is about. It's about the first thing that I mentioned. It's about a common person placed in uncommon circumstances and taking some action that really is something you learn in kindergarten. Just go through Doug's list. That's basically service.